How did you get into all three of them? Why did they all come together like that?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that I just really believe in education, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've told all my kids, I was taught when I was younger, we don't go to school to learn mathematics. We don't go to school to learn geography or history. We go to school to learn how to learn. And I was told by a teacher early on in my life that once you learn how to learn, you can do anything. And so I've kind of taken that into my adult life, and I realized that I have this knowledge base that's pretty unique and pretty deep. And so when I looked at the business model, I said, okay, what's going to be the common thread through everything that I do? When I speak, it's going to be education. When I'm coaching, it's going to be education. When I'm providing business services to my clients, it's education. Right? I'm teaching them how to navigate certain things. So education is just kind of the main thread there. Because I don't really want to have a client for longer than a year, right? Ideally, I want to teach somebody enough that they can break apart from me in terms of being their coach or whatever and take it on their own, and they can go do whatever they need to do. And so it's that education piece.
And so was the coaching part, you said it was the first thing that came with it? Or?
It's kind of weird how it all kind of came up. I mean, when I got through the idea that I was a coach, which was really hard for me. I get hung up on the word. I'm a big words person. My wife, I always tell her words matter. And so I kept saying coach. Well, not like a soccer coach or a baseball coach, but if I'm going to be someone's coach, there's this idea that their success is, really reliant or dependent on my abilities. And that's great. If they have a success, I'd love to celebrate that. But I also had to realize that their failure was part of it too. And so as a coach, I have to own that part of the responsibility. So I didn't really want to be a coach. And so I kept saying to my wife, well, maybe I'm a guide, right? And I was like, that's a good word, right? A guide. And she said, you're not taking anybody up Kilimanjaro. You're not a guide. And I was like, well, what's the word? Well, anyways, after a lot of struggling, sitting down with some other people here in town, I realized I was in fact a coach. I really was equipped to educate people. And so I needed a framework. And I think the way that it came along was I was like, okay, I'm going to go get educated myself on how to be an effective coach. So I took a life coach certification, and I just wanted to get a framework in place that I could talk with people and have that interaction. But being an entrepreneur, I knew that I wanted to cater somehow to the business community. I didn't want to just do life coaching. Life coaching is really important, and it's very much a subset of what I do with my clients. But I wanted to tailor in on those business needs that they had. So I really went down that road first because I think that was a gap that I identified. There are a lot of business coaches out there, but when I looked on how to go and get certified as a business coach, how to get that framework, there was very few places out there that allowed me to get a proper education and a certification in that space. So one of the things I've been working towards is like, okay, how am I going to coach other people? What's my methodology? And so I've been documenting that and practicing that for a while now, and I've actually started to develop a coaching certification, a business coaching certification program that people can come through that want to be coaches but want to be in that business space. So
Yeah. And so what was that reluctance to the word coach that you were feeling, you think?
Well, I think it's like I said, is that idea that I had to share in your success, but I also had to share in your failure. I don't know. It was something internal. I also realized that when I had to start collecting a fee as a coach, right, because this is going to be a business, I didn't know, you struggle with your own stuff when you do this too. I've told a lot of people now, when you're a coach, you learn as much about yourself as you ever teach to your clients, right? You're constantly in this growth space. And for me, I had to get through a couple of those obstacles as well, and just stop being hung up on the fact that I was truly equipped and empowered to go out and to teach other people. For as much as I don't know, admittedly, there's a whole bunch of other things that most people don't know that I do.
For sure.
Right. So I kind of looked at it like, where do I focus my effort and fill in those spaces and stop worrying so much about being hung up on the word. Right. Because at the end of the day, I am a coach. I fully embrace it now. This is, a couple years ago, I was really just like, it's something about the word that just kind of irks me, but
was it like a different thing than what you used to do?
Well, I mean, so I've had jobs as a trainer, I've been a coach in other capacities like soccer teams and, baseball teams and that. And I guess maybe I just had to really break apart the two different things because they're not the same. You know, teaching, and I mean, in a way, I guess they are because it's education. You're teaching someone how to play soccer and things like that. But when it comes
and a lot of that is character building. Right?
It is, and when you get into that with a business owner, you do have to deal with the personality traits, the baggage that they bring along, right? And a lot of times, it really is what's kind of holding people back in their businesses too. They're like, oh, I'm not making enough money because I don't have enough clients. Well, let's look at why you don't have enough clients. Maybe there's something going on with your character or your personality or your approach or whatever that's really kind of inhibiting you from a process standpoint. So
yeah, and a lot of times people just don't see that from the inside.
They don't.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people know their problem. You know, my experience with clients is we get into a conversation like, oh yeah, I totally knew that, you know? And I think that that's really where a coach adds value. Someone called me a mentor once, and I said, I don't really think I'm a mentor either because a mentor.
There you go, getting hung up on
words. Right, I know,
again.
right? But I have a quantifiable reason for this one. Mentors, in my opinion, mentors really are good at giving advice, telling you, hey, you know, you should do this, right? In fact, if you don't do this, you're not going to succeed over here in doing this thing. Whereas a coach is really more, I see it more as listening. When I get on a call or something or in a session with a client, I spend a lot more time listening than I do talking because I think a lot of my clients know their problem. They want someone who's not going to judge them or condemn them for having those thoughts out loud. And then it usually hits them like a train. They're like, oh, yeah, that's right. I need to fix that, or that's something I do, or whatever the case might be. So.